Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrente a sus rivales, enfrenta tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre al app para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Athletic.
Nissan Nerliman Nato nixed. Porsche picks up the penalised pieces. Florida fairy tale for refreshed de Grassi. And did Mickey Mouse penalties demean Disneyland display? Hello, I'm your host Andrew Vanderberg, and this is the Race Formula E podcast, slightly delayed from Miami because, like a normal human being, I actually had some holiday. Sam, you were actually there, so how was Miami?
I was there. Well, I'm not sure what Miami was like because we weren't at Miami, of course.
Actually, Homestead's nowhere near Miami, is it?
No, it's out in the sticks. It's out in the Everglades, about an hour from Miami. But don't tell Formula E that because I think in their bubble, it was very much a Miami event. But
how many times did you hear that Will Smith song while you were in the paddock?
Oh, I tried not to. I was more in the sort of Miami Vice frame of mind, but didn't quite
rolling up the sleeves of your jacket
of my white jacket. Yeah, it was okay. I mean, it was a bit different. Homestead is in the middle of nowhere, and it sort of sticks out of the flat lands before the Everglades. It's a bit of an unusual place to go, but we'll go into the sort of the positive and not so positive aspects of it. But the track was quite challenging. It looked good. The branding looked good. It looked all nice and shiny. But I think as we're going to discuss, 10 years on from Formula E being in downtown Miami and having 2 races with Long Beach, I'm not sure it's where Formula E should be, really.
No.
And I think that opinion was shared by lots of people in the paddock too.
Well, full disclosure, as well as not being around to record last week, the series record on TNT didn't capture the race either. One of my hobby horses for Formula E, and it's lack of regular TV coverage. So I was unable to watch the full race. I had to watch the highlights. So you're going to have to forgive the gaps in my knowledge about this. But I'm sure, Sam, you will fill them in as is required. So give us a bit of a recap of the whole thing, because the bit that everyone saw was, of course, most of the front runners getting penalised as they cross the line, and the result, as it was, not being the final one that was declared.
Yeah, it was a bit messy, really messy. It was a pack race, probably not as ultra pack racing as Misano and Portland to that extent, but it was one of those that started off very slowly and then got increasingly messier as the configuration of that track that was made at Homestead became a bit of a cul-de-sac for some drivers, an inevitable red flag, or the race suspension, which was a red flag, which lots of people told me they didn't believe was a red flag, but we understand that an ambulance was called for because there was an initial assumption that Jake Hughes might have hurt himself there, so a medical...
Did it set off some G-meter or something? That's normally the case, isn't it?
I'm not sure it was that, because it was quite a sort of slow speed prang really, and obviously the track was blocked, but there was an escape road there that some of the drivers went down, and I think they could have managed it. But look, if there's a medical car called, then it's pretty much a slam dunk red flag, so it can get there and make sure everyone's okay. That apart, it was a real pack race. It was multiple leaders and people getting into position. Ultimately, this should have been a race that Antonio Felix da Costa completely dominated. He qualified third, led for stages, but actually for a lot of the early positioning of the race, he was sat in the toe of the leader, whether it was Norman Nato or De Vries or Mueller, whoever took up the front, and he was just in a great position, good on energy, and when the pin was pulled, he went. But unfortunately, just as he took his second big tranche of attack mode of 6 minutes, the accident happened and the red flag came out, so he was absolutely stuffed, and really unfortunate. Without that, Da Costa would have won this race very easily indeed. So
I mean, there's an old saying that the law's an ass, right? And that just the situation that we had here. All of those people who had taken attack mode like within the minute leading up to that red flag were screwed, weren't they? There was literally nothing they could do.
Yeah, that's right. So just to recap on this. When the race was restarted under a standing start again, there were several cars that, majority of the cars other than Da Costa and a few others, Mortara had already taken his, but the majority still had an attack to make. So it was either 4 minutes, because the denomination of the attack mode is either 4+4 or 2+6 and 6+2. Those are the choices that they have strategically during the race. And some had 6 minutes, and some had 4 minutes left. The 6 minute ones were completely stuffed because there wasn't 6 minutes of racing. I think it was about 25-30 seconds over. I mean, if there'd have been another caution under the safety car, that would have mixed things up a bit, but actually those cars were zombie cars, whatever they were going to achieve, and most of them got into obviously the top positions because they were potent in terms of power, as we saw with Nato taking the lead on the finish line. They like I said, they weren't in the result. They were going to get a 10-second penalty and shifted back. Now, the rules are the rules, as we say. That is the law. That is what is written in the sporting guidelines and the regulations of the championship, and they are sacrosanct, right? Nobody's arguing against that. However,
and they apply to everybody, and they all knew before that there is a risk of this when you get into the latter stages of the race. If you haven't taken it, this might happen. Completely
correct. And actually, Porsche, when I spoke to Florian Modlinger after the race, he articulated that they covered Da Costa off in case of that eventuality, but it just came back to bite him. I mean, it's just a really unfortunate. Would you describe it as unfair? Probably not, because, like I said, it's in the rules. It's unlucky, but it's not unfair because they're the rules. Yeah, yes, it is. But when you actually when you experience that as somebody who's watching and investing time in that, whether you're at the racetrack or on TV. Now on TV, James Rossiter was doing a very good job of explaining what was happening. I'm not sure that was getting through to the crowd. So the crowd on the start-finish line was seeing what they thought was a grandstand finish of Nato outpowering Wehrlein on the line and winning by 0.2 seconds or whatever, and Frein's just another half a second behind. But actually, in reality, it wasn't a race, was it? Because we knew the penalties were coming, and then there was this movement of pushing Nato back, and did Grassi been bumped up to second and so forth, and that is just a very messy way of finishing a motor race. Well, especially it's an anathema to American fans, because in NASCAR in particular, they tend to fine them or ban the crew chiefs or whatever, rather than changing the result that the fans at the track see. They don't like, not having seen what the result was. Well, that's very true. That is very true. It was hard to gauge afterwards. I mean, there was a crowd there. I don't believe it was that much. The official figure was 17,000. I mean, so it's a good championship crowd. So there must have been like 4 massive grandstands full of people. Well, there is huge grandstands there, so it's actually hard to understand how many people are there. But 17,000. I don't know. I mean, if there were 17,000 paying spectators there, then my name's Boutros Ghali.
Formula E has form in this. I know you didn't make it to the original Putrajaya race, but the Malaysian Prime Minister turned up and declared there were 93,000 people there, and I would say 92,000 of those did a brilliant job of hiding over the course of that race.
I don't think Formula E is the only championship, is it, that inflates the...
They are far from alone.
Yes. Anyway, however many people there were there, I'm sure there was some dissatisfaction in the way that race finished. And interestingly, after the race, I was down at the Andretti garage, and they had a decent result with 2 points finishes. Nico Mueller in particular getting a very strong fourth place. A little bit of luck involved, but actually managed a really strong race from where he was in a very lowly grid position. And I spoke to Roger Griffiths, who obviously is the team principal of Andretti and has been since day one, is in a very good position for an American team to give an appraisal of Formula E in the US. And this is what he had to say about the Homestead race and actually the bigger picture of Formula E racing stateside.
Of the penalty, which is the most important thing.
I mean, Formula E's kind of not had a consistent foothold in the US, really. It's been multiple circuits. And
well, I think the one thing we can say is it's consistently had a presence in the US. It's just it's moved around quite a lot.
I mean, how key is that? You're one of 3 US.
I mean, we I don't think it's anything new. I mean, we've been very vocal about stability, not only here in the US, but in the calendar in general. We need data equity. We need, general consistency in the order of the races and stuff. And then from there, we need to find a home in the US. And, for a while that was New York, but the venue's no longer available to us. Jury's out, I think, on this location here. I think we need to reflect on how well it went. I mean, the crowd actually looked half reasonable. I mean, unfortunately, it's a huge grandstand, so even if you've got 15,000, 20,000 people in there, it's going to look a little anemic. But, hopefully they enjoyed what they saw. I mean, we'll have to see whether the Evo sessions had a direct impact on people's interest in Formula E. We got to see what the television viewership is, but personally, I'd like to be a little bit further north into the city of Miami. I think the Homestead track has done an amazing job putting it all on. I mean, compared to how this place looks for IndyCar or for NASCAR, I mean, it presented really, really well. A lot of that credit goes to Formula E, but also the Homestead track embraced it as well. So. I think there's a lot of positives that come out of this event.
Do you think the typical race fan would get Formula E if they were coming to the first race today? Because, frankly, the first 15 laps were a certain pace, which we're familiar with, but many aren't. Yeah. Then it's a sort of pot boiler, and then the pin's pulled. Yeah. It didn't quite happen, did it? Because of the safety car and then the red.
And also the peloton effect didn't really happen in quite the same way as it did in, say, Portland. And we were a little surprised by that as well. So we anticipated more of a peloton-esque race than what we got. I think the fans got to see a lot of overtaking. They got to see a lot of exciting racing. And hopefully it's about that level of entertainment.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
There are people out there all across the country pushing boundaries to grow the game of golf. Like champion speed golfer Lauren Cupp, who plays faster than anyone else. And Will Lowry, whose work in the golf community inspires more kids to get into the game. As a champion partner of the Masters, Bank of America supports everyone determined to find out what's possible in golf and in life. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Bank of America N.A. member FDIC, copyright 2025, Bank of America Corporation, all rights reserved.
Yeah, as one of the American teams, obviously it's important for Andretti that Formula E is successful over there. You said, look, we've had races in Miami, we've had races in Long Beach, we've been to Portland, been to New York. Was this a backward step for Formula E in the US? What's the future for Formula E over there?
Well, look, the race itself, as I said, looked absolutely fine. You know, paddock was great, nice branding. The place looked nice and shiny. But I think of it as of that weekend in Homestead as a bit of a microcosm for Formula E generally, a bit of a bubble. You know, everyone in it was kind of, I suppose, not slapping each other on the back, that's too much, but everyone was kind of pleased with the event and what it was and what it meant. But actually, you know, should they be? It's like I said, 10 years ago, Formula E was on the streets of Miami. It had a race at Long Beach. Since then, we've had a great event in New York, which had to be curtailed through reasons not particularly not all Formula E's making. We then went to Portland, which, you know, I found to be a quirky, an interesting quirky addition to Formula E. But then Homestead, a decade...
It was only supposed to be a stopgap, though, wasn't it, Portland, before they went back onto the streets?
Yes, but...
And it's like a stopgap into a stopgap.
How many stopgaps can you have? I know that Formula E are pushing quite hard to go downtown next year, and the CEO of the Hard Rock facility, stadium facility where F1 race was at the Formula E race, and the hope is that they will be there next year. They're working hard on trying to do that.
Is that what Formula E wants to be, just running a series of abridged F1 tracks? I don't know. That doesn't feel particularly ambitious to me.
Well, it was interesting at the post-race press conference, both Antonio Felix da Costa and Lucas di Grassi have been ever-present pretty much in Formula E since its inception. Both made a point of saying, look, we should be downtown. You know, we should be in Miami. Yeah. Nothing against Homestead. It was a suitable stopgap, and everyone enjoyed aspects of it. But Formula E should be having higher ambitions, bigger ambitions than racing at a permanent facility there. They need to be in a major city centre. There aren't enough city centre races in Formula E. When you strip it down, there's only really Monaco. Tokyo, you could say, is kind of half street race, because a lot of it, as we know...
Oh, I'll give that up. I'll give Tokyo a buy.
It's an exhibition centre race, stroke street race. Jakarta is a genuine street circuit race, but outside of the city of Jakarta, really. So there aren't that many genuine ones left. They are extraordinarily difficult operationally to put on, and financially, of course, to execute and achieve. But still, I do think that there should be at least 4 really good, glamorous circuits. But again, I think Formula E has been spoilt a little bit from the early phase of its history with Paris and New York and Rome and Hong Kong. People still hanker after those, and I think probably partners and stakeholders with the teams would like more of those shiny, glitzy sort of...
call me old-fashioned, but to me that's the DNA of the championship. But
yeah, I agree. But you can have best of both worlds. But I'm not sure at the minute. Like I said, London Excel, which has just had an extension, by the way, for 2026. We covered that in previous episode, which is, I think, fantastically positive.
Yeah, great news.
But it's not the city streets of London, is it? It's around an exhibition.
What are you saying?
It's around an exhibition centre.
It's called chaos.
Yeah, I think there's. I'd just like to see a really good, a household name capital coming back to Formula E. And like I said, maybe we've just been spoilt in the past with some of the ones they pulled off.
It's a pity they can't get Rome to work with for the modern cars. What I would say.
Well, yeah, and I've spoken to many people about this, and I'm not sure if that's I don't buy this whole thing of, our cars are going to be so fast, they're going to be dangerous. I don't get that. You know, Formula 1 and GP2 race at Monaco, and they race at circuits that are a little bit marginal on runoff. I mean, what's the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve? You know, if you go off at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, you're going to have a massive accident. Nobody screeches about Formula 1 cars.
Bring back Montreal. I'd like to see the modern cars around that track.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not happening.
Look, this is a whole calendar whirlpool we'll get sucked into. But ultimately, I thought
we'll do one in the off season, Sam. Fantasy Formula.
Do a special. Let's do it.
We probably ought to talk about the race actually. So Pascal Wehrlein claimed his first victory of the season once the penalties were applied. Is he gearing up as a championship favourite now?
Yeah, he's definitely in the favourites enclosure. I think he's got a good chance of defending. He's had a good season. He's just been unfortunate, you know, ended up on his head in Sao Paulo through no real fault of his own, and then it was messy in Jeddah, really again getting wiped out there. He's been quick, he's been consistently in the duels. He has been out-qualified by his teammate on the last few occasions, but still qualifying in the periphery of the top 10 at Miami. He always felt he was going to come through. Ironically, at one stage he was down in, I think, 10th or 11th, somewhere around that, and he seemed to be losing a bit of momentum and got clouted by his protege, David Beckman, and thought he'd bent his steering, hadn't, and continued, gone into position, and then got a bit lucky with the penalties that we mentioned before, but came through and won that race. Porsche had a very good package at Miami at Homestead. Wehrlein exploited it. He got a bit lucky, but, you know, he's had plenty of bad luck, so I think it's kind of evened itself out. He's looking like being in a good position already to defend his title. One interesting point, though, which I spoke to both himself and to Florian Modlinger at Miami, is he is confirmed now to do Le Mans, his first Le Mans. He's also going to do the Spa race in a couple of weeks' time. His schedule over the last 6 weeks is absolutely ludicrous, and I just wonder what outcome that could pose on a title campaign in Formula E, where every minor detail has to be completely honed and perfected. He has got a full week and a half at Le Mans, and I know, having done many Le Mans, I know what it takes out of you, and I'm not even competing in the bloody thing.
And you're not even an elite sportsman.
Well, some say that. I'm not sure across the board people would come to that conclusion. But he has got a lot going on in his life over the next 6 weeks, and it's going to be a real test to see if by Jakarta he is still in position, because Le Mans and a program such as he's undertaking can take its toll, but it'll be a big test for him. But he's proved in the past that he's capable of really concentrating, focusing and pulling together a championship campaign. So if he does it, as they say in racing, winning one championship is tough, but actually going back to back is one of the hardest things you can do, and that mixed in with a full Le Mans program will be one of the biggest tests of his career.
Ollie Rowland still leads the points, but having been super consistent up until now, 3 podiums in a row, including 2 wins, quite a disappointing outing, just 1 point for P10, and it wasn't like Nissan was off the pace, because Nato was at its most competitive, and as we saw, won on the road, albeit by using that attack mode when it should have already run out. So what happened there?
Yeah, so he didn't start off well. They had I think it was a new brake-by-wire system, or part of a brake-by-wire system that they had to sort of bed in the first free practice session, and the shakedown was cancelled because of a downpour, so they scrapped the shakedown session where a lot of these jobs can get ticked off, and Ollie's wasn't, so he went into free practice 1 still needing to do that, and it was a mess. It didn't work, or there wasn't a consistent braking pattern with the brake-by-wire, and they were chasing their tails a bit, so they effectively lost a good chunk of running there on a new circuit, and he just seemed to be on the back foot from that. He did sort of confide to me in the media pen that he hadn't been feeling great. He'd been a bit off it. I think he'd had a bit of a stomach bug the week before, and he was feeling a bit lethargic. And yeah, just an off day, an off weekend, which is quite rare, very rare for Oliver Rowland. But he still came away with a point. Actually, I think if there hadn't been a red flag, I think he'd have been in a good position. He was good on energy. He was managing a nice race. I think he could have been joining Norman Nato on a podium there, and we could be talking about Nissan been the dominant force rather than Porsche. Who knows? We won't get to know that. But he had a 6-minute attack mode to run and got penalised. So frustrating one there, just 1 point. But look, how crucial could that point be if it's really close, as I'm sure it will be come London in July.
Now, it might come as a surprise to regular listeners to this pod, but you did once work for Lola, so you must have been absolutely delighted to see Lucas di Grassi popping up in second place. This was a real sort of coming-of-age performance for that Lola Yamaha project, wasn't it? This wasn't just lucky.
That was the sound of my impartiality being filed away for the next couple of minutes. So, yes, it was a great result for Lola Yamaha apps. Very emotional scenes in the pit. I made a point of going down there after the podium and seeing them and seeing Till Bechtelsheimer and Mark Preston and the team down there, and it was really nice to see their fifth race. This is a great feel-good story. Lola 2.5 years ago was a defunct brand that nobody was interested in, and I know that because I'm sat here talking to you from Huntingdon, literally a quarter of a mile from where I used to work at the factory, which is now I think it's like a carpet or tiles place or something, which is quite sad to see. Anyway, it lives on through Till Bechtelsheimer's enthusiasm and him taking over Lola, and he's put together an extraordinary package with Apton and Yamaha, and it's just wonderful to see them get some success. It's been a difficult season. They've worked really hard, and they came to Miami after a really constructive test in Spain, ironing out some bugs. And look, there obviously were a great swathe of fortunate points in them getting second position.
But they were up there, though. It wasn't as if that they were 20 seconds behind. They were in the hunt.
No, absolutely right. They were quick in practice. Di Grassi was quick in practice, and in qualifying, Di Grassi got into the duels for the first time. Didn't get through that quarterfinal phase, but still, a top 8 position was extremely positive. And in the race, he built a really good race. Didn't get involved in anything carbon crunching, which Lucas has tended to do in the last few years. But fair play to him, fair play to the team to get this result in only their 5th race. A really great feeling to see the yellow and blue on the podium again, and I made a point, as I said, of going to see them. I was slightly involved with them coming back in terms of.
Did you get a glug of their celebratory champagne?
No. I'm a professional. I can't do that. James Rossiter was in there as well, doing the same thing and congratulating them. But I was slightly involved in the early phases of stitching a few people together at Lola with Till, and it was just nice to share that moment. And as you can hear with our chat just a few moments after he'd come back from the podium, it meant a great deal to him and the whole team.
Till, it's less than 3 years since you took over Lola to add another chapter, and here you are on the podium of a world championship, one of the 6 world championships in the world. It's a hell of a story, but what does this feel like? A milestone, a real milestone for your ambitions?
It feels like a win on many levels. It's huge milestone. I'm a bit speechless, to be honest. I don't really know what to say. We weren't expecting it, obviously, but it's also, this was the first race that we came into the race with performance in mind. Every race up until now has been about debugging, reliability, getting the basics right, and we're just at the very beginning of trying to extract the performance out of the package that we've got. Here we are on the podium, so it's really encouraging. It's a huge boost to the whole team.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
At the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event, get deals so right, it almost feels wrong. Now's the best time to get that Hyundai you've always wanted. Plus, every new Hyundai comes with America's best warranty and 3 years or 36,000 miles of limited complimentary maintenance. Don't think you can get away with all that? Think again. The Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. Visit your local Hyundai dealer today. It's a great day for a new Hyundai.
Spring is here, and you can now get almost anything you need for your sunny days delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get a chicken parmesan delivered. A cabana? That's a no. But a banana? That's a yes. A nice tan? Sorry, nope. But a box fan? Happily, yes. A day of sunshine? No. A box of fine wines? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
I guess in complete contrast to the euphoria of the Lola pit there, it must have been very miserable back at Jaguar. What is going on? From basically having the best package on the grid last season, they can't buy a result at the moment.
It's not good, is it? 3 non-scores out of 5 races is pretty desperate and most atypical of Jaguar. They had a pretty miserable time. They actually started free practice pretty good. I think Cassidy was quickest, wasn't he, in that first free practice session? But it just...
Don't ask me, I was on holiday.
It just wasn't sustained over the running that came after that. They're just not in a good position. They don't have the necessary pace to give much in terms of a race challenge. I think Nick Cassidy could have got some decent points, but got a 5-second penalty for a track limits infringement. I mean, it's not desperate. They are there or thereabouts, but of course in Formula E, if you're 2/10 off, it's not like any other championship where you lose a position or two. You lose 6 or 7 in Formula E, and they are just missing that pace to get in amongst the Porsches and the Nissans, and on occasion the Stellantis cars too. So a difficult start for them. They've got a lot to come back at.
Sam, they've got 35 points. They are 70 points behind Porsche after 5 rounds. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's too much to catch up, I think, even if they can turn it around. But of course, their big opportunity was in that fallow period between Jeddah and Miami, when they had time to go and test and to do things. They did do a test in, I think it was Calafat, and some of it got rained off, so they came back to Bedford and did another test there. But I just think that it's not something that they can catch up on in terms of getting a package similar to what they had last year. And to go with that, there has been some instability with a few people moving that we've covered in the last year or so. And in Miami, just after Miami, we broke the news that James Barclay, their team principal, a linchpin in the team since day one, is going to move on at the end of the season, and he's going to pastures new. So there's going to be a new team principal there as well. So it feels like there are elements of that team that are going to go through a bit of an about turn and a complete refresh ahead of Gen 4. And
any idea what the lineup succession is? Is this would there be an external appointment? Is there somebody inside that's going to be moving up? How's that going to work?
I think it's too early to say. This is quite fresh news. I think James probably will have a say, or certainly have his opinion gauged on who his successor might be. The 2 names that I would put pretty high up Chris Thorpe, who's the chief of staff there, and Gary Eckerold, who we both know very well.
Well, that's what I was angling towards. I wonder whether Gary was being
it would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it, for either of those two, or a combination of both, perhaps, to give some continuity there. But equally, there could be an external appointment for that. It's a very sensitive time because Gen 4, although technically they're quite advanced on the Gen 4 package already, the development and the on-track work will be starting this autumn, and that will be concurrent to the racing season next year. So lots to do, and the succession has got to be as streamlined and smooth as possible for Jaguar to try and get back on track, which they need to do pretty quickly.
And what would that mean for the drivers? When do their contracts expire? Is Cassidy's up at the end of this year?
It is, yeah. We did a piece earlier this week actually about Nick's possible next moves. I mean, just from speaking to people and understanding where he is positioned, I think there's probably multiple places that he could go, and I'm sure he's got multiple offers. The three that I see that stand out for him are either staying at Jaguar, which he could do, and there could be an option in his present deal or a new deal for him. I tend to think it's probably going to be a new deal, or potentially he could, if plan A of Nico Mueller doesn't work for whatever reason, of him moving to Porsche and partnering Pascal Wehrlein for next season, I could see potentially Porsche being very interested in Nick Cassidy. In that case, there could be an old swapsy sort of vice versa, wave at each other as they pass the corridors, and Da Costa could end up at Jaguar. The other option, I think, which one the more I think about, the more has legs, is Nick hooking up with Phil Charles at Penske, and we think that Penske are going to go it alone.
I can see
in
that.
Gen 4. They're kind of kindred spirits in the way that they work, very obviously technically driven, but very attuned to the dynamic of just going the extra mile, of getting every detail ticked off, and they worked together in a sense when Nick had that very good season with Envision in 2023 and almost won the title, and Envision won the team's title, and I think they struck up a really strong sort of working relationship there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nick sort of chooses Penske and they form something new and exciting for Gen 4. But let's see. I think it's going to happen, or his decision will be taken in the next few weeks. When that's public, we don't know, but I think it's quite imminent.
Okay, well, let's just rattle through the rest of the results. So Nico Mueller was fourth for Andretti, making it 3 Porsches in a top 4. A solid fifth for Edo Mortara and Mahindra. Nato dropped to 6th following his penalty. Good points for Cooper Kiro with Dan Ticktum in 7th. And likewise, some rare points for Envision with Robin Freins in 8th. I guess Jake Dennis probably a bit disappointed just to get 9th for Andretti, and just that solitary point for Ollie Rowland in 10th, as you mentioned. Anything from there you want to pull out?
Yeah, I mean, obviously caveating all of those really with the fact that they got done over by the attack mode, pretty much. Ticktum especially, I thought, did a good job, and Cooper Kiro did ran a very sound race there, and I think that will give them a lot of momentum and confidence heading into Monaco, which Ticktum's one of his favourite circuits, and a good flair driver. He should shine there. Yeah, it could have been better for Dan. He did a really canny race early on where he was just saving and saving and saving. Very good on energy targets, and I think if there hadn't been the red flag, he could have even been knocking on the door of a podium, and that doesn't feel too far away for that team, who are growing into this relationship with Porsche and Cupra too. So I think there's some exciting times ahead for that team. His teammate David Beckman did a really good job to get through into the quarterfinals, but then really disappointing race. He made a sort of a big lunge into the chicane and had a puncture, and his race ended very disappointingly, unfortunately for him. Other than that, yeah.
I guess one thing that's noticeable, no Stellantis cars, no DSs, no Maseratis.
Yeah. Well, that was the big disappointment. They came from Jeddah, having won a race and been both DS Penske and Maserati been very competitive, and it just didn't work at Miami. And it seems to be, I don't know if it's the grip. The grip philosophy of different circuits. The DS Penske package, so I'm covering obviously Maserati MSG in this too, it seems to be very adept on high grip surfaces and high grip asphalt. And Miami was very quirky, so you had a very different patches of surface there, and it just didn't seem to suit them, and they just seemed to get lost. And Jean-Eric Verne had a really erratic, sketchy weekend. Unlike him, really, he was off the road a couple of times, went lawn mowing on one occasion in the race across the grass, and it's just a very messy race from him, which doesn't, happens once in a blue moon. Gunter got involved in the shunt. Hughes was done in the shunt. Jake Hughes actually was looking good. I think he could have got a good bunch of points had there not been a red flag or he'd been involved in that accident. He was a bit of an innocent party. And who's the other one? Van Dorn, really good. pulled a lap out. He pulled a great lap out in qualifying, got into the duels where he probably shouldn't have been, but then sort of fell back in the race and never really got into a position there. One to forget, the first time ever, get this as for a stat, the first time ever that a Stellantis car has not scored a point since the advent of Gen 3 at the start of 2023.
That's amazing.
So,
that really is.
What's that? That must be like nearly 40 races, isn't it? 16 races a season, 36. Yeah, it'd be like 37 races, which I found amazing that was the case. But one to forget for the Stellantis cars, and the bigger question for them, as we've talked about in previous episodes, is what they're going to do for Gen 4.
Yes.
The hot name in Miami was Opel. To the extent where a couple of very good and useful sources told me that Opel is pretty much agreed that they will be one of the brands representing Stellantis in Gen 4, and the other could be Citroen. So we ran a story. So if you've missed that, have a look on the-race.com to check out if Opel could be back for the future. So we hinted at it in the last podcast, but it's been sort of
talked about Calibras and
Manuel Reuter and
all that sort of stuff.
Did we mention my old man's 1981 Opel Ascona? I don't think we did.
No, but we should have done.
I think he wrapped that around a lamppost in 1981, so it's long since departed.
A fate befitting of all Opel Asconas.
Yeah, and don't forget that Walter Roll was World Rally Champion in an Opel back in 82. I think it was about 82, was it? Just before the...
And people say we don't know our audience.
I think it was 82. Yeah, just before the Quattros turned up, wasn't it? So
yeah, last of the rear-wheel drive champion.
Indeed.
Oh, no, because... Anyway, Monaco next up. The race where Formula E absolutely shows that it can race better than Formula One. I defy anyone to go to Monaco FE and say it's not a better event than the Formula One Grand Prix there. What can we expect?
So it's a double header. That's the big change this time. I'm sort of a bit sort of, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea to have the double header at Monaco. How do you feel about it?
I don't like it personally. I think it's such a good event that you just want to leave people wanting more.
Yeah. A Jewel in the Crown event should be.
Does this mean we've got bloody dynamic chart? What's it called? Pit boosting, all that nonsense.
Yeah, we've got pit boosting. That's returning. And
I was excited for a second.
That'll be on the Saturday race, so that'll go first, as it did in Jeddah. And look, it worked okay in Jeddah. It worked fine. As long as it works. But I tend to think that I'll probably enjoy the second race a bit more, where you can actually get a good story, a good narrative, and get stuck into a race.
Although, in fairness, it'd be nice to watch one with some screens and some timing screens that are working, so I actually know what's going on this time, rather than being in the Jeddah Media Centre and just being a blurry mess.
Oh, you want everything, don't you? You want absolutely
everything.
Yeah,
it's 2025, and the least I expect are functioning screens in media centres.
Okay, we'll try and fix that for you.
It's not too much to ask.
I think I've gauged a lot of the drivers, and there's going to be a feature just ahead of the race about whether a double header is a good idea or not. There are plenty of them who...
I was still people going though. It's like the flights to Nice are a normal price. The hotels are, the normal price. Pizza and a beer won't cost you an arm and a leg.
Exactly, and you can
and you'll see some overtaking.
Honestly, if you want to see a really good sporting dynamic at Monaco, you're not going to get it with Formula One. You're not going to get it with Formula 2. You will get it with Formula E. You get a terrific race there. It is a high grip surface. I actually don't like that. I'd have preferred the old days of Monaco, having the grates and the the drainage places, and there used to be a little pathway going into Mirabeau. You remember where Beloff took Arnoux all those years ago? It's a street circuit. Don't make it a big asphalt dance floor that's all smooth. Make it a little bit gnarly. Anyway, it is what it is. It will still be a great race, and if you want to do a World Championship motor race on 350 quid, 400 quid, you can get a nice, like you said, VDB, you can get a really cheap ticket down there to Nice, get the train from Nice to Monaco, which will take you 25 minutes, and all of a sudden you're in this wonderland of rich people.
It's the same track, all the same corners, you know. You can go and have a beer at Rascas and not worry about bankrupting yourself.
You can, although the Tip Top Bar has become our place of choice. So if there's anyone who fancies a pint, I think Friday night at the Tip Top Bar, that's where the race team will be, and we always have a traditional annual pint at the Tip Top where a loosener, where in the bar there are pictures of Graham Hill, James Hunt, Patrick Depailler celebrating their wins from previous years. It's absolutely fantastic. So there you go. So I do now expect a free pastis or something from the Tip Top Bar for that plug.
It's the least they could do. Right, you've got 2 minutes to sum up the rest of any other business. What else is going on?
News. So the future of Neil McLaren is at the forefront of many minds now. We've run a piece, or we're about to run a piece about what's happening with that team, and it appears that it's going to be a very different structure to that entrance and to that license for Gen 4. I'll keep it brief because you need to go and read it when it's published, because I'm not sure if it will be published by the time this goes out.
No spoilers.
But yes, that team is going to look very different in the future. The Opel and Citroen we mentioned, so we've covered that one off. Felipe Drugovich did a test for Mahindra at Calafat, I think it was, about 10 days ago, and he's a possibility. He's been evaluated for a potential berth at the team for the Berlin race, where Nick de Vries will be racing at Interlagos for the WEC round. So Drugovich may make his Formula E debut for Mahindra there alongside Edo Mortara. That's about it, really. There's other bits of
Hang
news.
about. On the script here, it says FE documentary. You can't leave that hanging. What's this?
FE documentary.
Is that the thing that you're in that I had to sign a release form for?
Yes, it is. So that is going to be screened on a major streaming service that I can't
say or remember.
I can't say or remember. So this could be good fun. I'm going to get a little pre-watch of these before they go out. I think they go out after Monaco early May, and it's taking episodes specifically looking at last season and some of the journeys that the drivers went on, including Dan Ticktum, Jake Dennis, can't remember who else. Maybe who was it? De Grassi, I think. A few others. Me. Can you imagine my journey in Formula E? You won't get it through the censors. No, it's
all sadly still on the cutting room floor.
So it's by Astronaut Productions, Astronaut Films, who are a great bunch, and I spent a great deal of time with them last year, and they're very good, and I think it will be a great watch. So look out for that. I think it will be a bit of become a fan favourite, and I don't think it's overtly sort of Drive to Survive-ish. I think it's got its own style, but obviously
it will naturally be what people refer to it as in shorthand.
It will, but if it enhances the characters in the sport and it gives you an insight into how great Formula E is from a sporting standpoint, despite what we say sometimes, it is
only because we love it.
I think it'll do great things for Formula E, and if it brings new fans in, as other initiatives have done, then all the better for it. So yeah, should be good fun at least.
Nice one. Good. Well, remember to check out all of Sam's news, including that story about the future of Neil McLaren on the-race.com. Check out all our other podcasts from Formula One, Team Principal Show, Colossally's back, looking at the old history of motorsport, and we'll see you promptly after the race in Monaco, because I shall actually be watching that one, so I look forward to that. Bye.
The Athletic.